good morning. How y'all doing? It's your boy CD. It's 0500 hours Eastern Standard Time on the mainland. So what's the front we're gonna fight today? As I stated in my last podcast, essentially the reason why I use the term "oorah," right, is not only to represent individuals who fought and possibly died for this country and our freedoms in this country, but also to recognize those at home who fight daily battles, struggles of mental health possibly, or maybe of social or lack of social awareness within their community, and them having to deal with that on a daily basis. That's a daily battle. Inwardly, right? Inwardly, it's an inwardly battle. It's not like, rah, boom, boom, boom. It's more like, within yourself, trying to better yourself or gain a self-understanding. That's a battle that we all fight, whether you enroll or not. So it's also to recognize that here on the mainland. I like the hypothetical. Anyway, today we have a very interesting subject. We're going to talk about, and this one here is predominantly for my young men, and predominantly I do try to speak to my young men because I can relate to them and understand them a bit better than I can of our young women, right? Naturally. But this is definitely honed right into our young men here. It's for you guys. Marriage. We're going to talk about marriage today, guys. Is it scary? Yes, fellas, yes. Young men, yes. It's scary for us too. You know how you talk about it in school and you're talking about marriage and kissing, you're like, ew, nasty, yuck, right? I lost my Instagram followers, but it dropped out, unfortunately. Instagram's back online, so we're talking about marriage Instagram on the mainland 0500 hours. And the purpose behind this subject is to help our young men to understand that the feelings that they feel at a young age about girls, that feeling's not going to change, right? We all had this feeling early on in life, right? As young men, kissing a girl was like, yuck, ew, nasty, but really, we're scared of it. We don't understand it yet, right? And that's fine. We're not supposed to understand it at that age. But naturally, God made us that way, right? As almost like a time scale. He didn't want us to be reproducing too early as a species. So he naturally, if you're a God-fearing individual, obviously, he naturally made us almost like a time scale to reproduce. So we're not naturally supposed to like kissing girls at a certain age anyway, young men. And number one, let me let you know that if you feel as though it's yucky to kiss a girl, that's absolutely normal. Okay, and you're doing just fine according to God's plan. But beyond that, as an adult, I just want to reassure you that something as scary as proposing to a woman that you may feel as though you love and want to spend the rest of your life with is just as scary as when you were a kid and thinking about kissing a girl, right? Yuck. Ew. Marriage? Ew. Yuck, right? Scary. Yes, it's very scary. But what scares us most? I think what scares us most is lack of information, right? Not being informed on, number one, the processes, right? What's entailed in proposing to someone, right? Well, buying the ring, right? We all know that part. Getting on one knee, we all know that part, right? Will you marry me? We all know that part. But more deeply, what's entailed, that's the information we lack. And some of those things, we're not going to touch on that on this podcast specifically, but I will touch on some of those things. And one thing is communication, communication, communication early on in a relationship. Talk to each other and get to know each other. Before I get there's an arousal there, obviously that's what kind of sparked everything, kind of something you really was attracted to you outwardly about this individual, and now you want to know who they are inwardly, right? So take your time with that inwardly, how do I want to call it, research or questioning, right? Take your time with that before having intercourses and things of that nature, while you're still thinking with a clear head, I like to say. And this might be also good for the women, young women too, or grown women or whatever, women, right? But focusing, your focus, right? Because intercourse for young men and older men and men as well, period, can change your course of thinking, or you know what I'm saying? So while you still have a clear mind, you should be evaluating your partner inwardly now to see if she's as beautiful inside as you thought she was outside, young men. Okay? So that's number one. That's the first thing you should be doing, not buying a ring or kneeling, right? That's the first thing you should be doing, is learning your partner, right? And who they are. Not changing them, but accepting them, or understanding that they're not your match. That does not make them a bad partner. That just makes them not the partner for you, possibly, right? But her partner's out there. So do not waste that young woman's time in finding her partner. So when you realize at some point that, wait, whoa, okay, she likes abortions. I don't agree with abortions. She thinks they're fine. I don't. Okay, that's not for you to judge her on. That's for you to understand that, okay, we have a difference in opinion, and maybe she's not the one for me, because that may cause a discrepancy later on. So kindly walk away as a gentleman with respect, and knowing that she's the queen of some other gentleman out here, right? Move on. And look, you just dodged yourself a bullet later on in life, right? Perfect. So we're going to move on. After you figure this person out and she's perfect, she's everything you thought she was, right? So then where do our fears lie then? Well, our fears lie in not understanding, or maybe we're possibly not in the position yet where we have a full loving of ourselves, which is another thing I wanted to touch on, right? So where do our fears derive from, right? Or where do they lie in? Is maybe not a clear understanding of ourselves or our own history, right? I personally believe some of our fears lie or result from some of the things such as slavery, right? Where we were disencouraged to be married. Also, unhealthy relationships that we've had over the course of our lifetime living, right? Between friendships or girlfriends or and they were unhealthy, and we didn't properly maybe deal with that pain of that relationship within ourselves. So we can't move on past it, and it's affecting our other relationships. So past unhealthy relationships can also be something that our fears derive from. An unstable environment that we grew up in, possibly. Maybe not the most unstable, we're not talking drastic. It could be slight things like just not having your father in your house when you wanted that, or just very something slightly, right? Or just not having a father in your life, period, but your mom was awesome. Or maybe you didn't have your mother or your father, but your grandparents were awesome, right? But an unstable environment, right, can also cause us to have a fear of attachment to something, because we're so used to detaching, and we taught ourselves to detach and to survive emotionally, that it's hard to attach, right? Etc. Whatever. Life, right, brings about fears. So that's why it's also encouraged that if you're going to marry someone, you should probably do marriage counseling prior to being married, just to ensure that you're both on the same wavelength, right? How to overcome our fears? Well, the only way to overcome our fears is to be informed, or inform ourselves. So I encourage us as parents to be informative to our children. Have these open discussions with our children beyond just having the sex conversation, but having the conversation of love and What is love? How is love expressed? How do I know when I feel love or feel as though I love someone? These are the conversations we should be having, more so than sex. But along with sex, I think, personally, right? Especially for our young men, right? Because although as a young man we don't care about love, we're like, we don't care about love. We don't care about love. But if you taught the child young about love, then they would care about love. But if we don't teach our children young about love, true love, real love, which means first loving yourself. Love thyself, it even says that in the Bible, right? Loving yourself and understanding yourself and accepting yourself. That's where love starts. And then once you love yourself and understand yourself, then you know what can better you. And this way, and in this way, you can find the proper partner that will be a great life partner for you, because you'll understand that, hey, this person and their qualities are going to better me. That's love. Love should fulfill you. God is a loving being, right? Because he is full of love. And he exuberates love, right? So, before our next one, I wanted to touch on the next topic, which I'm very excited about, is going to be financial literacy. I'm writing a book, amateur at best. You guys know how I do it, right? I wrote a business plan, amateur at best. It's still in the works, the business plan as well. But I'm writing a book about how to evaluate stocks. I'm self-teaching, but essentially, I wanted to touch on one of the topics that's going to be in the book, as well as the online courses, which I look to start on the EdRec Center. Check me out on IG, YouTube, TubeIn, subscribe. How to calculate sustainable growth rate of a stock. Sustainable growth rate of a stock essentially tells you how fast or efficiently or effectively a specific business is at growing or expanding, right? While incurring little to no losses, right? How business savvy are they? How forward thinking are they? That's kind of what the calculating their sustainable growth is going to tell you about the company. So you can evaluate where they are today and where they possibly will be in 10 years. This way you can see if you're buying a stock while it's overvalued or if it's undervalued, because that's important. But you got to tune into my next podcast to find out why. My name is CD. Check me out, www.edrecenter.com. That's EDRECCENTER.com. The EdRec Center for youth mental health awareness, social awareness, as well as educational and recreational advancement. My name is Cristino Sanabria Diaz. I have a 45-page business plan for a $45 million nonprofit after-school program, which we are looking for funding for. If you think it's a great idea, check out my website, read more about it, sign a petition, and let's get this thing built. Peace, love, and happiness to all.